Good morning, Radiant Church. Welcome to this first service of 2022. I wish you a fruitful and joyous new year. My name is John Ogleton. I'm one of the lay elders here. And from time to time, for no reason understood by me, I really do find it amusing. They asked me to speak to you, and so this is one of those mornings. In that last song, and may I also just echo something that you've heard before? It is actually a tad challenging to come up here after the worship and then just to talk to you, to participate in that worship really is quite overwhelming. In the last song, there was mention of a mystery. And God truly is a mystery. The relationship that He calls us into, that is a mystery. And I would ask you, how do you approach mysteries? Do you approach them as a problem to be solved or an equation to be dissected? Or do you approach them as a truth to be absorbed? A truth to be accepted? And this is why I find that particular idea so interesting. And it's because the God of the universe, the one that we just finished praising, He is an infinite God, and He is far superior to us in intellect and wisdom. So surely some of the things, perhaps even many of the things that He reveals to us, to our medium cantaloupe-sized brains, they're going to be mysteries. And really, for us as Christians in our walk through this time bubble, how we accept those mysteries or what we do with those mysteries has much to do with just the manner in which we move through life, and much to do with the quality of the relationship that we have with our Heavenly Father. Relationships. The relationships, these are, regardless of how we might perceive them, relationships are really, I'm going to say, relationships are the most important element in our existence today and on into eternity. Horizontally speaking, for men, the relationships that we enjoy, that we experience with our wives, these are far the most important relationships, horizontal relationships that we will engage in on our time here in the planet. And for our wives, the same is true, that the relationships that they have with their husbands is by far the most important relationship that we will experience, hopefully enjoy during our time on the planet. So glad to see you. And then growing out of that, our relationships with our children, they will prove to be the second most important horizontal relationship that we experience, but they are greatly shaped by the relationships that we experience with our wives and with our husbands. So here's the question that I put to you. If you truly believe that relationships are the most important, and this spousal relationship being the most important horizontal, and that with your children, second to that, shaped by the relationship that you have with your spouses. If an observer were to make mention of your life, so what they see, would they confirm that the relationship that a husband has with his wife, that you have with your wife, that the relationship your wife has with you, the relationship that you have with your kids, that these are in deed, in act, in the decisions you make, have they proven to be overtly apparent to the observer so that that would be their remark? If your neighbor were asked, what would your neighbor say? If another family member were asked, what would they say? This particular way of sort of engaging that observer piece, if your boss were to ask, what would he say? Is that familial relationship, are those the most important things in you, for you, in the way that your life is playing out? Hold on to this concept of relationship, because really this passage we're going to explore today, John 15, 1 through 11, it's all about relationship. It's about profound relationship, and not a horizontal relationship, but a vertical relationship, indeed an eternal vertical relationship. But let me set this passage up before we dive in. Imagine this. Let me pray first. Father, thank you so much. Thank you so much for granting us a new year. Thank you so much for this gathering today. Thank you so much for your word and the wisdom in your word. Father, help us to accept our limited intellectual capacities and embrace your word from that perspective, realizing that you are far greater in every respect, and just accepting your word for what it is. God, in this moment in our hearts, please give us a strong desire to enjoy the relationship that you have preserved for us, that you have redeemed for us. God, God, that we would enjoy a relationship with you that is the same that you have always enjoyed with your Son, God. In this hour, Father, please redefine relationships for us in such a way that it brings great appeal to our hearts, and that from this moment on, we would live lives that are in pursuit of the greatest relationship. God, your will be done, your work be done on our hearts now. In Jesus' name, I pray. So imagine this. Imagine a great Father. Imagine a great and good Father. And in considering this Father, you've got to get outside of yourselves, because he truly is great and good in every respect. He is greater than you in his compassion. He is a compassionate Father. He is greater than you in the manner in which he loves. Because we are fallen human beings and have become corrupted by sin, the manner in which we love really is an inside-out love. And so when something outside comes to us that pleases us sufficiently, then we decide we're going to love that thing. And that love can prove to be very limited, because once that stimulus of my personal satisfaction is removed, then we as fallen human beings, given the way that we define love, we might decide that we no longer love that thing and want to put it aside and find something new. That's the way that we love. But this good and great Father that is greater than what we are in every respect, this compassionate Father, his love is a love that terminates on the object of the love. So it's not a concern for how that object appeals to him and brings satisfaction to him. It is a love that is concerned with the well-being of that object, a love that is driven to bring the best to that object, no matter what it takes. So this Father, this good and great and compassionate, loving Father, who has this kingdom that is near to him, and inside this near kingdom, a rebellion occurs. There is a usurper that would raise himself above the great Father. But the great Father is great in all things. He's great in power. So he quells that rebellion. He banishes that usurper. He banishes that usurper to a faraway kingdom where he, in fact, is growing a community of other subjects. And it's not long before that usurper is his old ways. So here in the far kingdom, the usurper once again foments rebellion, and that rebellion affects the hearts of these subjects that live in the far kingdom. But the Father, he loves these subjects greatly, and so immediately after the rebellion, he says, I will fix this. I will send one who will save you. And then over time, the Father is working his good plan, and the Father raises up a family that's going to form into a nation. And he says, okay, you are my people. Our relationship, it will reflect the relationship that I desire to always have with my people. It will reflect that relationship. And then through what the world sees, you will call my subjects back to me. But this family that he raised up into a nation, they were corrupt, and they did not always live in relationship with the Father the way that he requires in order that he would draw the rest of the subjects through him as a result of that relationship. He did great things for this community. This community was imprisoned once, and they cried to the Father. And the Father sent a deliverer to these people, and he took them out of prison, and he took them to a great land, and he said, remember what I have done for you as you live in this land and prosper. But they would forget the Father, and they would fall out of relationship with the Father. So this plan, it appeared to not be working, because this nation was not calling the world back into relationship with the Father. But the Father is all wise. This was just a portion of his plan. And so the Father, at the appropriate time, he sent a warrior king, a great warrior king who has similar compassion for the subjects that the Father has. He sent another of the same kind, one who, like the Father, is or has been, is eternally existing. But he is separate from the Father. But they are of the same substance. Yet, they are distinct in role. He sends this warrior king to the far kingdom. So the warrior king leaves the near kingdom where he is adored constantly, and he goes into the far kingdom with the express purpose of rebuilding the relationship. But in order to do that, he must battle with the usurper. And he must do away with the negative effects that the usurper has brought into the far kingdom. The warrior king, every bit as wise as the Father, he recognizes that the manner in which he will do battle is going to be foreign to these people. These people who know of the promise of the warrior king. They expect for the warrior king to come in his might, to come with legions of armies and to put down the oppressor, the government that was over them, and to free that people that he chose many years ago. But that's not the plan. It's not about what we would see as a political uprising. This is a battle for the heart. This is a battle for relationship. And so this warrior king, he comes silently, and during his time in this far kingdom, he gathers amongst him a select few. And with these few, he shows his great power. He doesn't show his great power in himself. He shows his great power in a unique way. So it's important that we understand that this warrior king was sent by the Father. It's important that we understand that the things that this warrior king, the things that he didn't do based on his power. He had the same power as the Father, but he chose to restrict that power. And all that he did through the great counselor. This is another of the same kind, similar to the Father, similar to the Son, of one substance, separate, but equally God, distinct in role. His role is as counselor. So the power that he performs in front of this chosen few, it's power through this counselor. This chosen few, his disciples, they have grown in great affection for their warrior king. And then on a particular night, the warrior king shares words with them. He shares words with them that trouble their heart. So they have lived with this warrior king. They have seen his power. They know that he has the power and the authority to free them. He says words to them that disturb them. I'm going to leave you. And this doesn't make sense to them. And they become troubled in heart. And he says, I'm going to be taken away. And what they don't understand, and what the warrior king understands, is that for his victory to be complete, for him to truly free them, that this battle results in his death. Confusing to us, but makes perfect sense to the king. But here's the thing that I want for you to take from this narrow window of time, hours within the time that the warrior king submits his life for these new subjects. In these last few hours, these are the words that he chooses to give to his disciples, these chosen few that he has revealed himself to. How precious must these words be? How carefully chosen must these words be? That these would be the words that he was given, that he chose to give to them in the final hours before he is taken away from them. And he says to them, he says many things, but one of the things that's in the heart of that, he says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, the Father takes away. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. Abide in me, and I am the vine and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me, if anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. And the branches are thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, then ask whatever you will, and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my words. If you keep my commandments, you will abide. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. Let me say that again. You've got to hear that. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These words I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be full. So these are the words that he chose to speak in his last moments with his subjects in the far away kingdom. So, let us zoom in. We'll parse a few phrases, and then we'll zoom out, and we'll take a look at this in a broader context. So, he starts off with, I am. To the hearers, to these chosen few, this would have had very profound meaning. So, for this family that he had initially created to enjoy relationship with him, he had told them that I am is his name. So they would have known that this Jesus that was walking with them, that he is saying that he is God, that he is the God of the universe. In this very book, in the book of John, Jesus at 7 different times uses I am statements. He says, I am the bread of life. He is telling us that he is the one that owns life, and he gives life according to his will. He says, I am the light of the world. All of those things that we find confusing, the darkness of the world, he is saying, I have come to overcome that. I am the door. He is the protector. He stands in the door. He brings us into a safe place, and then he stands in the door to protect whatever might come against us. He is the good shepherd. He is the one that takes us to places that are good for us. And while we are there, he is the one that protects us. So the good and great king is our protector. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. We must deal with this one just for a moment. The great warrior king is the resurrection and the life. And so this actually occurs in the same book, John 11:4. The context around this is there is a particular family that Jesus has spent time with, Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and he has great affection for this family. This family has great affection for him, and he is apart from them, but he gets the word that Lazarus is ill, and they fear that he will die. And so when he receives this word, listen to this through the lens of mysteries aren't for us to solve, but mysteries are for us to accept. The truth in the mystery we accept. John 11:4, but when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. What is your perception of death? What thoughts, what feelings, what emotions are conjured up when you consider death? The great, compassionate warrior king, the all-wise warrior king, he says, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Then the passage goes on, and they receive word that Lazarus has died, and Jesus then speaking to his disciples in John 11:14, he says, then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, and for your sake I am glad that I was not there. So that you may believe, but let us go to him now. I was glad that I was not there. Reason, so that you may believe. Let us go to him now. And further on, after they have arrived in Bethany, and now they are at the home of Lazarus. Lazarus has been in the grave for 4 days. The Bible is particular in revealing that to us, because now we know that this body smells bad. It's been decomposing for 4 days. it no longer would appear like the living Lazarus. And in John 11:25, Jesus says to Lazarus' sister, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. And then Jesus closes that out with, do you believe me? Death for some, for the glory of the Father, brings glory to the Son. Those who believe shall not die. Do you believe? Now I go back to what are your perceptions of death? When you hear that word, what conjures up in your heart and in your inner being? And is that consistent with what we've read here? So just to close this out so that Jesus could prove that he is the resurrection and the life, Jesus goes to the tomb. It is a cave with a stone in front of it. He has the stone removed, and there are people telling him, Lazarus smells by now. Are you sure you want to do this? And Jesus then prays to the Father, and he says, I'm praying so that they will see me pray, so that they know that you have sent me, and so that they know that this power comes from you. And then he says, Lazarus, come out. And moments later, Lazarus, alive, with the bandages still on him, walks out. This is a true historical event. What are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts about the warrior king? I ask you, do you believe this? I am the resurrection and life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way to this everlasting life. I am the truth. The words that I say to you are true, even if they are mysteries, and you believe them, you will have everlasting life. And then finally he ends it with, I am the true vine. The true vine is in reference to this family that God had created long ago, this family that the Father had created long ago, whom he was going to draw the world to him for a relationship, but they were not successful in maintaining their relationship with God. So now the warrior king says, I am the true vine. I am the one that will bring the world back into relationship with the Father, with his displays of power that he did through the counselor. And he also introduces his Father. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch in me he prunes. Just revealing to them that the Father plays part in all that Jesus is doing, and we will come back to that in a moment. No, we'll deal with that right now. So there are two passages that I want for us to place side by side. So verse 2, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. That. And then verse 6, if anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. There's actually much debate over these two passages. I just want to deal with them briefly to give you some sense of what's being said here, and also to arm you if you hear different opinions in the future. So in the one, it says, every branch in me. in me is a concept that is really well developed in the New Testament. And those who are in Jesus, they believe in Jesus and his finished work. When we look at verse 6, it says, if anyone does not abide in me. So there's a suggestion there that these are those that don't believe Jesus, or don't believe in Jesus. Let me say this, neither is strong enough to really to form a hard opinion, but there are still things that we can learn from this. It says, every branch in me that bears fruit, he takes away. So if we examine that word takes away, the original word, there's also a portion of that word that means that he lifts up, he raises, he elevates. And so a vine dresser would, at particular times of the year, go through his vineyard, and those branches that were on the ground, he would raise those up. He would attach them to the trellis. He would wash the dirt off of them, because on the ground they will not bear fruit. They don't have enough air circulating around them, and they are also subject to parasites that are on the ground. So he would raise them up so that they can bear fruit. And in addition, he says those who are bearing fruit, he will prune. And the pruning suggests removing branches so that they bear more fruit. And this is the way that we understand pruning, but that word also means cleans. So in life, there are times when perhaps he does remove things from our lives that are preventing us from bearing fruit. There are times in life when he simply cleans us. So there's a host of meanings behind the word prunes. So let's see that passage in that particular category. And if anyone does not abide in me, he's thrown away like a branch, withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. So perhaps this is those that don't believe in the warrior king, and as a result, they suffer eternal separation from the king. I mean, this thrown in the fire and burned, it certainly does have a ringing of the hell that the scripture also talks about. But again, I will say there's really not enough in this passage to make that delineation. Here's what we can understand. The Son and the Father are both involved in the development of fruit, and that the consequences of not effectively abiding are really something that we don't want to experience. And then the last parsing that we will do has to do with the word. And it says in verse 3, already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. And then in verse 7, it says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you. Ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. In this particular book, there are places where the warrior king says that the words that I speak, these are not my words. These are words that are given to me by the Father who is in the near kingdom. And so that singular, already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. As I read that, I'm wondering, is this a unique reference to the warrior king? Already you are clean because I've given you the warrior king and all that he has done for you. And then where it says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, this seems to be more of a reference to the words that Jesus spoke to his disciples. This seems to be a record of the words that God has given us over many centuries so that we would understand who he is and so that we could be called back into relationship with him. Enough of the parsing. Let's zoom out. There's really some mystery here. There's really some mystery here that I confess, even now I wrestle with. I wrestle with it because it is so big. But I desire to wrestle with it and accept it because it is so incredibly sweet. Let's move to the end of what Jesus has said here. We'll start in 9. He says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. The great warrior king and his father, these two members of the eternally existing Godhead, this perfect union, and Jesus is saying, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. So through the great warrior king, we are able to experience a love, remember, a love that is concerned with the object of that love, a love that is concerned only with the best interest of that object. We are able to experience the love of the Father. As my Father has loved me, so I have loved you. And then he says, abide in my love. He calls us into his love. In thinking about this, it occurred to me that love is the sweetest element of the sweetest relationships that we ever enjoy. And then here, Jesus is calling us into, actually will give us instructions on how to engage in the sweetest element of the sweetest relationship that we could ever hope to enjoy. That love with the Father. He says, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. Then he goes on and he says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Here's where the friction is. If you keep my commandments. Who among you has ever thought that at the center of love was obedience? We who live in this Western culture, here where we celebrate the individual, and the individual has no authority. We are our own authorities. In our nation, we have seen in our recent past how we will rebel against even authority that is sensible, even in the small things. This is the culture in which we live in. This has, to some degree, infected all of our hearts. And here is the truth according to the warrior king who came to repair a relationship, that at the center of this eternal, everlasting, supreme love that is geared towards your best interest is obedience. How does that set with you? Commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Jesus is not asking us to do anything that he hasn't been doing. Listen to this. Hasn't been doing. Listen to this. For all of eternity. Jesus responds to the commandments of the Father. Listen to some of the commandments. The Father sent the Son to rescue you. The Father gives the Son the words to speak. The Father gives the Son the work to do. When Jesus returned to heaven, he asked the Father to send the counselor. And then the Father sends the counselor to you. This Godhead, this triune God, they enjoy a relationship in which obedience is a major component. And now you have to ask yourselves, are you, if you desire, I mean, this book, these instructions have no place for anyone that doesn't desire a relationship with the Lord until the Lord gives them the desire. If you have desire for relationship with the God of the universe, where are you with obedience? And then he goes on and he says, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. I'm absolutely overcome with the reality that the God of the universe has invited us into this same intimate relationship that he has enjoyed with the Son and the Spirit for all of eternity. Has invited us into that relationship. And we really have nothing to compare this to. I love my wife dearly. And I would hope that if anyone asks you about my priorities, that it would be easy for you to say, yes, Brother John loves his wife dearly. We were talking about this passage yesterday, and I said to her, I said, Chris, I love you dearly, but what that isn't this. That isn't this sweet relationship that the God of the universe has called us all into. And here in these final hours, Jesus is giving these words to those who will soon become his warriors as words to comfort them. Let me close with this. Inside this passage, he also says that if you abide in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. What does that fruit look like? So that fruit looks like conversion. By that I mean that fruit looks like you inviting others into this incredible relationship with God, and through the example of your life and the words that you give them, God may use you as that instrument to bring him into relationship. That fruit looks like character. It looks like Christian character. I mean, it's often defined as the fruit of the Spirit: love, peace, joy, kindness, patience, forbearance, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness. And it looks like conduct. Jesus came to give us an example of how to live. And so we can examine our conduct to see, are we abiding? And through that abiding, has God so transformed me that I look more like his son Jesus today than I did yesterday, that these things qualify as fruit? But let us be clear. That is a way that for us to observe, to measure whether or not we are abiding, whether or not we are in relationship with the God of the universe, whether or not we are experiencing his love and that love is transforming us. So there is mention of fruit, and our call for this ministry year is fruitfulness. Let us be clear that fruitfulness occurs as a byproduct of abiding. And it is simply a way for us to measure our abiding. And then let me finally close with this. Just that Jesus promises us his joy, and that I feel tempted to compare joy to happiness, because happiness is a word that we use so frequently. Think of it this way. Happiness is something that we can see very akin to the type of love that we are familiar with. Happiness occurs when some external stimuli comes upon us, and then we are elated. But then our happiness is determined by external stimuli, and so it is temporary. When that stimuli is removed, then the happiness wanes. And this joy that Jesus is talking about, this is internal. This starts in here. This starts as a result of the counselor that Jesus has given to us, working inside us, realigning our priorities, transforming our hearts so that our priorities are based on things that are eternal and not temporal. And as we see those things playing out, then we are given great joy. This joy is far superior to circumstances. Happiness is subject to circumstances. So, Jesus invites us into an eternally existing relationship. One that we simply cannot understand or compare to any of our horizontal relationships. This is a pure and perfect relationship. He offers this universally to all those who believe in him. And truly, it brings a level of intimacy that is only experienced through the love of the eternal and living God. Let me pray. Father, thank you. Thank you dearly for the sending of your Son. Thank you dearly for his words. God, may we truly learn to abide. May this year, may this be a year that we are focused on abiding. May that be our resolve this year. God, that the words abide in me and I in you, that these words would have great meaning to us, and that we would desire always to abide. That this would be a manner of living, not just momentary experiences separated by days or weeks or months. God, send us to your word. You exist in your word, and we can abide with you in your word. God, drive us to our knees in prayer that we might seek you, seek your counsel. In this we abide. God, give us a more intimate relationship with the Spirit that you have supplied to all who have accepted your Son, God, and in that grow our abiding. God, let us never look at a vine and a branch the same again. As we see the vine and know that the life-giving elements that the branch needs, they are supplied by the vine, and that you are truly our vine. But even in seeing the vine and the branches, God, that we would know that that's an insufficient display of our desperate need for you. God, and then as your word says, as we move through this year, God, and you are pleased in our abiding, and our abiding brings honor to your Son and to you, Father, that we would bear fruit, we would bear more fruit, we would bear much fruit. God, but then show us, let us see the fruit only so that we might be encouraged to abide more intimately. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Son. Thank you, Spirit. In Jesus' name I pray.